So you're looking for a way to crank out some little cheese pizzas that are under 500 calories a pop. Or maybe you live in a van down by the river and somehow got enough stimmy checks to get you a sick bank of some lithium ion phosphate batteries and an inverter with enough balls to power a 1700 watt air fryer. Well, today, that's exactly what we're doing.
Cooking, not cleaning, we smoking and seasoning, grilling, sauteing, and chilling is the reason. Raddad Cooks, y'all.
What's good, everyone? Raddad Cooks here, coming to you live from my backyard. If you're new, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ding the notification bell, that way you don't miss a second here at Raddad Cooks. And as always, please like. All right, so today we are whipping up a super easy Neapolitan pizza dough that we can make ahead of time and then crank out a badass Neapolitan pizza that's under 500 calories in under 10 minutes using only an air fryer. Let's get started whipping up this dough. Now, Neapolitan pizza dough has got to be by far one of the more simple pizza doughs to make out there. It also makes it one of the more healthy ones because it doesn't have any kind of oil or sugar in it. It's just flour, water, yeast, and salt. It's a low moisture dough, meaning it's only about 60% water and then the rest is flour. Now that's 60% relative to the weight of the flour. Now, one way to get the flavor maximized in this dough recipe is to make what they call a Poolish, which is kind of like a yeast starter. So we take a small amount of the flour, our yeast, and our water. We're gonna mix it up, set it in a warm place for about an hour to get shit popping, put it in the fridge overnight, and then the next day, we're gonna add it to the rest of our flour and water to create our dough. This is gonna give us a nice aged, flavorful dough without having to make it ahead of time for a day or two. The longer that our dough ferments for, AKA rises, sits in the fridge, the more flavor it's gonna have. So the Poolish helps us get that started. To get our Poolish going, we're gonna go 3 parts water, 1 part flour. So for our particular recipe, that's gonna be 150 milliliters of water and 50 grams of flour. I like to put it right into a mason jar. And then to that, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of dry yeast, give it a little shake, loosen up the ring on that jar after you get the lid on so that CO2 can escape, put it in a warm area for about an hour, and then move it to the fridge. Periodically, give her a little shake. That way it stays nice and acerated, and that yeast can come to life. After our Poolish has had a night to sit inside the fridge, we can go ahead and put the rest of the recipe together. And go ahead and put 350 grams of bread flour. I like King Arthur bread flour, nice high protein, so it gives us that crispy crust. Then we are going to add our water. The water is 90 milliliters. Now with our spoon, we're gonna make a little well in the middle of our flour. Slowly start incorporating our Poolish, working our little circle larger as we go. Once our dough has come together, we can turn it out onto a lightly floured surface and begin to knead it. Now, of course, this can be done inside of a KitchenAid. Just put your dough hook in there, add all your ingredients, let it rip on number 2 for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm showing y'all how to do it so that way, if you're chilling in the van by the river, still whip up some sweet ass pies. As you're kneading your dough, move it around the board or the countertop or the hood of the Econo liner or Sprinter van, you know, whatever. Try and get all that flour picked up. So we need all that flour inside this dough to get the moisture content proper. All right, so after about 10 minutes of kneading our dough, it's gonna be close to where we need it to be. If you look at it, it's gonna be kind of rough. It's not so stretchy, but that's all right. That's just because it needs to rehydrate. The glutens are forming in there. That's when it's gonna give us our real nice crispy crust. We're gonna wanna take this, put a little oil on it so it doesn't dry, get it into a bowl, cover it in plastic wrap, and let it sit somewhere for 1 hour, preferably somewhere kind of warm between 75, 85 degrees. After your dough has had about an hour to rise, we call this bulk fermentation. When the whole ball rises, we're then gonna chop and screw it up. We're gonna knock this into 4. This recipe is enough to make 4 little, I don't know, around 10-inch pizzas, okay? That's about as big as an air fryer can accommodate. A dough blade is the easiest way to cut this up. Cut it in half, then cut the halves in half, and then we're gonna roll them out. You don't wanna go mashing on it, pushing the bubbles out. Just pinch the bottom, seal it up with your hands, doing a little cutting and rotating motion. Get your 4 balls, put them on a tray, and let them sit for another hour, and then they're gonna be ready to use. Now, if we wanna get a little extra flavor, we can wrap them and put them in the fridge overnight, and on that second day, they are gonna be out of this world. I got some right here that I prepared earlier, so let's get rolling these bad boys out. My particular air fryer has little shelves, and there's 3 of them. So this is great because I can roll out the little crust ahead of time, put them on this rack, and then use these to move it around as I put the toppings and stuff on them. Go ahead and roll a couple of these out. I like rolling Neapolitan pizzas on a real fine semolina. You could use flour if you can't get your hand on any of this, but put a little bit on our counter surface. Take ball number 1, give them a nice little generous coating. Now with these Neapolitans, it's all about those little bubbles and stuff. So we don't want to be too rough. Just push with our thumbs. So that way we can kind of work all that air to the end. That's what's going to be our crust. That semolina is going to make it real easy to have this thing just skirting all around the board for you. Pick it up, give it a little stretch with the hands. Remember, we're going for something that's around 9, 10 inches. All right, we're just about there. We can throw down our rack as a guide and maybe go about another inch. Kind of hard to toss a little baby pizza like this, but whatever. The more gentle you can be as you work those air bubbles to the crust, the better results you're gonna have with Neapolitan pizza. Just about there. Maybe give this other one another little tug. As your dough sits and warms up and you stretch it, kind of work a little bit more out of it too. It becomes a little bit more pliable. Definitely want to make sure it comes out of the fridge for at least an hour, maybe 2, so that way it's nice and workable for you. Squeeze a couple more inches out of this one right here. All right, let's fire up the air fryer. Now the way we get a nice crispy pizza that's popping out and airy, maybe even a little light tan leoparding inside of the air fryer, is we're actually gonna cook it for a little bit first and then put our toppings on. So we're gonna start off with our pizza shell rolled out. It's gonna go into the air fryer on the top shelf. All right, temperature is gonna get set to 400 degrees, time to 5 minutes. Let it eat, kid. So I'm gonna be showing y'all how to make 2 different versions of this pizza. We're gonna be making the 488 calorie version of this pizza. And then we're gonna make one that's more like a traditional Neapolitan pie. It's gonna have a little bit more cows. It's gonna have a lot more cheese on it, a little extra virgin olive oil, skeet, you know, the biz. So for our 488 cal version, it's gonna be the pizza shell, and then we have pre-measured out 1 ounce of whole milk, low moisture mozzarella cheese, and we have about 55 grams of Prego brand spaghetti sauce. It's all about portion control. You're trying to keep those cows down. Just sometimes you might be at that weak ass portion, but this is gonna be very satisfying for under 500 calories. While that shell's cooking, we will go ahead and get the rest of our ingredients ready for the other pie, the OG Neapolitan. Want to use some Cento brand Italian tomatoes. The whole ones are great, mash them by hand. But if you want to go simple, you know, in the van, we're trying to conserve water, okay? We can't be washing a bunch of dishes or our hands and stuff. So I like to get these little petite dice. Don't even need a can opener. You got a bowl with a strainer. Just gonna go ahead and put some of our petite diced tomatoes into that bowl, strainer combo. Give it a little whirl just to push out some of that extra moisture. Put that to the side, let it continue to drain, and that is our sauce. Now for toppings, it's very basic. We just got some fresh mozzarella cheese. I like to buy the stuff that's already cut, save a step. And it's really hard to get this stuff kind of uniformly cut like this, so it's great. And then we just got some whole leaf fresh basil. You don't even need a knife. You just tear this stuff by hand. Try to get the stems out too. You don't want stems up in there. Drinking on a High Lie IPA from Cigar City Brewing, Tampa, Florida. My stomping grounds. Got one little place here in town that sells these. Sometimes the big grocery store will have them, but I was in that area yesterday. I figured, the hell, I'll go grab some. All right, so it has been 5 minutes. Make sure you have something to pull these racks out of the air fryer. The air fryer gets freaking hot. So you can see our dough's got a little puff to it, a little bit of brown on that side. We're gonna flip it over. We're gonna put our toppings on this side. It's gonna kind of deflate a little bit when it comes out. Let it go ahead and do that before you start putting your sauce on there. That way it doesn't slide off. All right, so for you dieters out there, we got our pre-portioned stuff. Spread that sauce around there. All right, now we're gonna hit it with a little bit of that mozzarella cheese. I think you'll find that an ounce is actually more than enough too for a pizza this size. Don't wanna over cheese the pie. Let's get it as even as you can. All right, she's going back on the top shelf. Door closed. Temp back on 400. Time 5 minutes. And we wait. Yeah, look at that. Doesn't even stick to the grate. We got a nice little pizza pie. Crust is nice and crispy, especially for not having any kind of sugar or oil or anything on it. Whenever I make a little pie at home like this, just basic with cheese, I always like to hit it with what I call the big 5, which is salt, pepper, crushed red pepper, Italian seasoning, and Parmesan, or like we call it around my house, this fake stuff right here, this crap, we call this sawdust. Best way to cut this up is gonna be with a chef knife. After about a minute or so, when that cheese sets up, cut it into 4 slices. This is our 488 cal Neapolitan pizza. Get a bite of this. Oh yeah, gonna need more beers. Now let's whip up that OG. All right, so just like our first one, we're gonna put it in the oven for about 5 minutes, then we're gonna flip it, top it, 5 more. But this one, you know, we're going for tasty points, so we're gonna hit it with a little drizzy drizz of extra virgin olive oil. It's just gonna help it crisp up even more. Top shelf. 5 minutes. 400 degrees. It's my jam right there. All right, let's slide it out. Flip it, top it, and put it back. Remember, kind of let it deflate a little bit before you go putting your toppings on there. That way they don't go flying all over the place. Hit it with some of that fresh tomatoes. This is about as traditional as a pizza gets. Very basic. Simple dough, simple sauce, simple cheese. All right, just gonna lay our cheese pieces, about 1 for each slice. Top it with that basil. Hit it with a little extra virgin olive oil. We're gonna put it back into the oven. Might have to drop it down 1 shelf just so we got enough clearance so our cheese doesn't cook onto the top of the air fryer. We're also gonna increase the time to 7 minutes since we're dropping it down a shelf. All right, fire it up to the time for 7 minutes. Temperature 400, and send it. All right, we just finished up our 2nd round of the OG Killer Neapolitan pizza. Let's take a look at this thing. Yeah, now that is what I am talking about. We'll give it a second to chill out before we go slicing into it. All right, it's been a little minute or so. Gave the cheese a second to set up. We're gonna run this knife through this Neapolitan pizza. You can see that the pizza slice is nice and airy in the crust. Nice fat layer of mozzarella cheese on there. Got a little bit of a crispy char on that basil. This might even be too hot to bite into, but I can't wait. That's some good stuff right there. So say Neapolitan just ain't your thing. Well, we're gonna do a bonus round. We're gonna whip up a thin crust. Nice little dose of that fine semolina on both sides. Take a rolling pin, roll it out. Now this is contrary to what we were doing with the other pie, because it's, for the most part, popping all the bubbles in there, but this is how we're gonna get it nice and thin. Now when we go thin, it's gonna end up being a little bit bigger, so we're gonna trim off some extra so it still fits on our air fryer pan. Let's see. All right. So we only got to really just nib off a little bit. I'm just gonna use this as a guide. Take a little bit off there, a little bit off there. All right, and we're gonna use a dough docker just to put some holes in it. This is gonna prevent it from rising also. These holes are gonna let that air escape as the dough cooks. Top shelf, y'all know the drill. 400 degrees, 5 minutes. All right, we just got done with that first 5 on the thin crust. Pull it out, you can see it looks considerably thinner than the other ones. Almost looks like a pita or like a flatbread or something. For sauce on this one, we're actually gonna use that strained off tomato sauce. So this is the liquid that we captured from draining the tomatoes for our other pie. On a thin crust pizza, you wanna have real kind of thin sauce because you don't wanna have a landslide of toppings. So with that being said, also sauce it very lightly. A marinade brush is a very good way to get even coverage of your sauce on your pie, unless of course you're a master like Raddad Cooks, but we humble. Got an ounce of cheese. This is whole milk mozzarella, low moisture. Kind of tricky to find. I actually got a video on selecting cheeses for pizzas. If y'all wanna go check that out, along with a whole bunch of other pizza videos too. So if you're new to the channel, or you're just breezing through, you ain't never made no Raddad pizzas before, you need to go check it out. Have you whipping up some New York style pies in your home oven like you've never had before. 5 more minutes, 400 degrees. See you then. All right, let's pull this last pie out of the oven. Here we go. Nice little thin crust pizza pie. And this will be a low calorie one too, probably even a little bit lower than the first one we made because we just have tomato sauce on there. No sugar or whatever high fructose corn syrup BS that Pregs is putting in their stuff these days. Get a little piece. That is thin. That's cracker thin. See what it do. That is a killer little thin crust pizza. I would say if you like it a little bit more crispy, I'd add about 2 more minutes onto each side. But really, really good for how simple and basic this is. Well, thank you very much guys for swinging through the yard, checking out some little different alternatives to whipping up pizza pies at the house, especially for you calorie counters out there, man. Gotta eat something that's satisfying, and nothing is as satisfying as pizza. You can pile the veggies on this and really not increase your calorie count too much. But if you wanna go all in, make it that OG with them big fat slices of the fresh mozzarella cheese, doused in extra virgin olive oil, cause man, that is the classic. Thank you very much, guys, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in, and if you love the content of this video, hit like on the way out. If you're new, become part of the Raddad Cooks ecosystem by subscribing and dinging that notification bell.